Hey everybody, it's Brandon from Sparksmith helping you see and be seen. Today I wanted to go over a new product that we have. We have an animated LED hood strip. Now you may be thinking I've seen it before. This one is both a bright white animated startup running light, but it also has sequential amber turn signal functions. So we see the base kit has just a simple power and ground input and left and right turn signal input, and when you apply, just any switched 12 volt source will do to turn these on. It doesn't draw a whole lot of power. So for most vehicles, you should be able to kind of tap into maybe your running lights or some kind of switched power source. We'll go over some of the other installation options in a minute. But you can see it does this cool little startup animation, and then you got let's do that part over. Okay, so you can see that the base kit comes with power and ground input and 2 turn signal inputs. So when you apply a switched 12 volt power source, you get your startup animation, and then there's amber for one side, then of course the amber sequential for the other side. There's a couple of different ways to go about wiring this. The kit will have the option to just come with the strip itself, which means you'll get exactly what you see here, like the strip with the wiring and a couple of butt connectors to help you splice it in to wherever you'd like to. If you need something that's a little bit more turnkey, we will have the universal installation kit, which will include enough red, black, and yellow wire to hook up to whatever power sources you need, as well as some zip ties, butt connectors, and your choice of fuse tap. You just gotta look under your hood in the fuse box and match up. There's one of 4 styles to choose from, and just match it up to whatever the one looks like under your hood. Lastly, we will have the plug and play option for any 99 to 07 GM truck. So that's your Silverados, Sierras, Denali's, Yukons, Escalades, anything in that. It's a GMT 800 chassis. They're pretty much all the same in their wiring, and our plug and play harness will make it so that you can just plug in, much like we did for the 03 to 07 Cat-Eye grill bar harness. It's the same harness, except it will have plugs to go to these guys. So everything will be plug and play, no custom wiring, no cutting, no splicing. So those are kind of your 3 different options for how to wire them in. Next, we'll take a look at how to actually install one of these on a truck. Okay, so a couple of different ways to install this animated startup hood strip. One, if you've got something like, so this is an 06 Super Duty, what you would do is take a peek at the fuse box, if I can find it. See what the fuses look like under here. Like for this, it's an ATC, and you would choose ATC fuse tap, and then you would take, if you got the universal wiring kit, you take your fuse tap and connect it to this red wire. If you need the extra length, if you don't need the extra length, you can just use the wire that comes with this. So the fuse tap would connect to the red wire, and then that's going to plug into, you would find which one of these fuses only comes on when the key's on. And when you find that switched power source, we'll remove the fuse, insert it into the lower slot of the fuse tap, grab the wrong one. Okay, so talking a couple of different ways about how to install this animated startup hood strip. If you have something like this 06 F250, you can get the universal installation kit, which comes with a fuse tap, some extra wire and butt connectors and zip ties and all that. And what you would do is take your you're going to look in the underhood fuse box, wherever it is on your vehicle, and see what fuses are in there. And for this one, it is an ATC style fuse. And you'll look on the listing, you can see there's a picture showing what the 4 different styles are. Just make sure you match it up to the one that's under your hood. And what you want to do is find, of these fuses, you want to find one of them that has key on power. And usually it's going to be something like your fuel injectors or a power point, like the cigarette lighter power points or something like that. When you find that switched power source, remove the fuse, and you're going to insert it into the bottom slot of this fuse tab. The top slot will already have a fuse in it for you. And then all you do is take the included butt connector and crimp it to the red wire. And then you'll take your black wire and run it to a ground, preferably the battery or a factory ground terminal. And then all you have to do is take your yellow wires and the included butt connectors, and you'll come down and find, like on the Fords, a lot of them have a plug that looks like this. The newer ones are more of like a tan beige color, but same principle. It's got 3 wires, and it's the 2 outside wires are power and ground for the turn signal. The middle wire is power for the running light. So for this application, what we would do is you want to bring back the sheathing a little bit, cut 2 or 3 inches back. You're going to cut there and splice this in with the butt connectors, and then repeat that on the other side, and that will give you power for the turn signals. Okay, so I would recommend doing all the wiring first, or at the very least doing just connect it to the battery, even if it's just temporarily, to make sure that everything works like it's supposed to. Plus, when you're installing it, it's got double-sided tape on both sides, so you can either install it, it just gives you options on which way to install it. Also, it's helpful as you're laying it down to have it turned on so that you've got it facing the correct direction, because if you lay it on there backwards, then the dull side, or the dull side's gonna be facing out. You'll have to pull it off and redo it. So, another tip on these: if you want some help finding the midpoint, there's a couple of different ways to do it, but one would be to just activate the turn signal for one side, and where this starts is going to be the midpoint of the strip, and so just kind of make sure that lines up with the midpoint of the grill. Once you've identified where it's going to go, you want to take some rubbing alcohol and a clean rag and clean the surface that you're going to adhere this to, and then keeping that midpoint where it's supposed to be. Obviously you would have some headlights here for this to rest on, and we just start peeling off the protective layer for the double-sided tape, and just slowly work your way across, just giving it a little bit of pressure, since it's a pressure activated tape, and then come all the way across to the other side, same thing, and then that's pretty much the whole installation. Next we'll go over what it looks like to put it on something like a Cat Eye Silverado. Okay, so similar approach if you're going to be installing it on an 03 to 07 GM truck, whatever the case may be. If you get that option and you get our plug and play harness, it's going to install, like I said earlier, very similar to the way the grill bars and their wiring harness install. So what you'll have is this harness has kind of 2 legs to it. Typically what I do is, if you take this side that has 2 adapters, I'll take that to the driver's side, and the one that has a single adapter to the passenger side. You kind of lay it out. And what you'll do is, for each parking light, you'll remove the factory socket from the back side of the parking light assembly, and you'll take the 3-wire plug. This goes to the factory turn signal, which will also have 3 wires. And you just want to make sure that the black wire on this plug lines up with the black wire on your factory plug. And before you plug that in, it's very important to take the included dielectric grease and make sure you fill this factory socket with dielectric grease to help prevent corrosion and rust. Once you get that seated in there, you can take whatever bulb you're running and put it into this slot and pop that back into your parking or your turn signal housing. Same thing for the daytime running light. That's going to go to the factory daytime running light socket. Use the dielectric grease, make sure the black wire lines up to the black wire, and get it good and solid clipped in there, and put the bulb back in. Repeat on the other side for the turn signal, and that's all there is to the wiring. The strip will have 2 plugs. It'll be right about here that will plug right into these 2 plugs on the new harness. So obviously the yellow ones are for turn signal, and the black and white is for power and ground. What I would recommend is that kind of get it laid out. You want to have your headlights back in place. Since these will be going over top of headlights. Okay, so once you get the harness all plugged up, I'd recommend turning the key on and hit either your left or right blinker. And then get these plugged in, and obviously make sure it's plugged into the strip, so that you have a good frame of reference for which side is which side. Obviously we're going to start it this way because I've got the passenger turn signal going. And like I said before, what we're going to do is we're going to line it up where we get this midpoint. If you've got a razor blade handy, it's going to work out better to start in the middle and work your way out, as opposed to starting at one end and going to the other. Just more likely to get it installed nice and smooth without any wrinkles. So obviously before you start laying this down, since this is just a test run, you would want to clean this with rubbing alcohol just to get off any dirt, oil, or debris or whatever, so that this thing sticks really well. And then we'll just lay straight across, and you kind of keep it right on that forward edge. Now, I know what you're thinking, and you're like, well, what if I need to remove my headlights again? Well, the option there would be to run down to the hardware store or to your favorite shopping app or whatever and buy you some 3M double-sided tape. And you would just repeat the process. You just lay your own strip of tape back down. Okay, once you get everything tucked away, nice and neat, and get the strip mounted on there, you should be good to go. So switch the lights on and give it a test. Okay, so there you have it, the hood strip installation. It's got these white animated startup feature as well as these sequential turn signals, and you can find it now at sparksmith.com. Thanks.